Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us for our weekly webinar. I'm Mark Schumacher, CEO of the Home Furnishings Association, and we have a very unique panel today that I think you're really going to like, and I think we're going to have some incredible conversations, a lot of great takeaways. I'm not going to spoil those details until I get done with some housekeeping here real quick. I want to let you know, on the right side of your screen, you've got a box that says chat. If you have any questions, put it in the chat, send it. We'll do our best to get to it. We do have those questions you sent in when you signed up. And by the way, this webinar, as all of our webinars, will be on demand after we are done here. myhfa.org/webinars, where you can find a library of incredible content. I highly recommend it. It's a great place to go to get a lot of your questions answered and to hear some incredible experts from different aspects of our industry on any subject. I'm not even going to give you a list. Any subject you can think of, we have it there. So please make sure that you visit. So here's the story about today. The three people we have on this call have each, in the last 3 years, have won our Retailer of the Year Emerging Star Award from the Home Furnishings Association. So I'm going to start with the one who was awarded it in 2020. We have Joe Bright here. He's president of Duncan Bright Furniture in Syracuse, New York. Joe is joining us. Joe, it's always good to have you here. Thank you so much. We then have, from 2021, we have Sydney Harris. She works for Furnitureland South in Jamestown, North Carolina, just up the road from where I'm coming from right now. And she's the Director of Organizational Development for FLS. Sydney, it's great to have you. And then just recently, a few months ago, I had the ability to go and bestow the most recent award, the 2022, on Eric Biter of Biter's Furniture. They have a number of locations, the primary one in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, yes, across from where the World Series happens as far as Little League. I love that. That's a great town, great history there. So I want to thank the three of you for joining us very much. We really, really appreciate this. But here's the interesting subplot to this whole thing. You all were chosen by a group of industry experts and peers who nominated you, et cetera. But what we have on this call are three talented people who are all part of the succession of their family businesses. So a lot of the questions we're going to get to today, a lot of the people have been wanting to talk about is that aspect of it. So I find that interesting that we got you all going. So anyway, welcome everybody. I'm going to throw out this first question because there's a lot that's come to mind in prepping for this. So I want to ask you, and I'm going to start with Sydney. Sydney, what is it about the environment at FLS that's conducive to growing up in the company? Because the vast majority of home furnishings stores are still family-owned businesses. So a lot of people want to know that. What is it about that environment that, allowed you to kind of, move your way up and continue to do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm excited to be here today. Thank you again, Mark, for having us here. I think one thing about our environment here that really drew me to kind of start and work up in the company here is there are so many different facets of the industry that you can get into. It's a furniture store, but it's sales, it's marketing, it's accounting, it's operations and distribution, it's service, it's answering calls and chats. So there's so many things, so many different areas of expertise that you could have to start. And I started in sales. So I started as a sales and design consultant. I did that for a year before moving into more of a training role. But for me, nothing happens in any of our organizations until the sale's made. So being able to see really that first experience with the customer and how the magic kind of starts happening in an organization, that was a big thing for me starting out.
Well, I'm gonna. Your answer just made me want to go to Eric real quick, because Eric, I know that as currently the general manager there of one of the stores, that you are somebody who's done every job as well. Is that part of it? Would you agree with Sydney? That's part of the environment that's really helped to cultivate you as a succession leader within your company?
I would absolutely say that has been part of it. I started in our warehouse when I was 12 or 13 years old, breaking down cardboard boxes, putting together RTA furniture, moving things around, then going on deliveries, and then finally moving into sales, and then the general manager position. So what it allows you to do in a family business, it allows you to experience every aspect that you possibly can, and then find what you're really passionate about or what you have an affinity for.
Okay, so it's really great to be exposed to everything. Love that. Joe, it's good to have you here with us, and also in this sort of the third slot on this conversation, because you have elevated up to president of the company. I mean, you were running that company now. So talk a little bit about that, and your dad, Jim, and how everything sort of flowed to get you to where you are right now, because everyone I think that's listening is wanting to provide that kind of an environment so that they can hopefully have a succession plan of their own?
Sure. So I joined Duncan Bright in 2017, came on as vice president, was promoted to president, and I bought the business from my dad in January 2020. So I didn't necessarily do all the different functions, but what I have found valuable is if I do have a manager position open up, but retirement, resignation, I do enjoy doing that for a short while before I transition it. So I think it is important to learn all the functions of your business, especially if you're going to become a general manager and have to, you know, not necessarily do everything all the time, hopefully not do all those specific functions, but you'll know better how to manage the people that you have in those roles if you do it for.
Well, Joe, I mean, we're talking about insights, right? I mean, it seems to me like you're saying take advantage of those opportunities to just learn a little bit more about another aspect of the business.
Absolutely. I never backfill a manager position right away. You know, there's no need to panic. If you backfill it right away, you've totally lost your opportunity to, I don't know, improve that function, learn a little bit about it, and know what you're going to expect from someone. So just had a buyer. He's been with us 28 years. Told us he's going to retire at the end of this year. He gave me a huge lead time, which is really nice. So while he's here, I'll do some buying functions and under his guidance, and he's you know, reviewing what I'm doing, and I'll do that for 2 or 3 months before I choose his successor. And that's how it's worked for me. And I've been able to develop my knowledge of our organization and know what I want to expect people to do once they're in those roles.
I mean, it's interesting. What you've all talked about is, in one way or another, is immersing yourself in the, you know, in the business. And Sydney, I love what you said, because my gosh, when you look at all the different aspects of any of your companies, it's so multidimensional, and I guess it gives you a chance to kind of see where you fit in. So you did a little bit of it. Let's dig a little bit deeper. You started in sales, so now this title, which is pretty awesome, is you know, Director of Organizational Development. So what does that involve? Does that across all of these categories, or tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So after being in sales, I moved into a sales training role. So myself and my team were responsible for all of the onboarding for new sales and design consultants, which is a very extensive 3-week program. I'm happy to discuss with anyone if they have questions about a training program and what that looks like. And then moving into sales for the training team as far as continued education for vendor knowledge and also systems training. So within the last 3 years, our company's adopted a new order entry program, so our point of sale system, and then also a new cloud-based ERP system. So implementation for both of those, if you've gone through them, you know they can be a little bit challenging. But what we found was, while it was really important for our sales team to be trained, there were other areas of our company that didn't have the process for training quite yet. And so what we found through the sales training and how that program was, we needed to have that same thing across all departments, specifically for new technology rollouts and just for continued development of our team. So part of my new job, it's twofold. It's increasing and developing the employee journey, so our employees' experience as they work here at Furniture Land South and what that looks like for them, personal and professional development, and then also taking a really intentional look at our client experience, and from the point that they first interact with our company to the end where they get delivery and then send referrals and partner with us continuously. That whole journey looks a lot different for every single customer, and how can we really make that consistent and make it a great experience for everyone. So a lot of stuff, but I think that what we've learned is through these really crucial implementation processes, we just saw a need for more training and development in every aspect. So that's where we're going.
Well, and just to give people context, Furniture Land South is, you know, the largest single location home furnishing retailer in the country, and so they're talking about roughly 150 what they call design consultants there, who are their salespeople. And so just to give you some scale as to what FLS is all about, you know, but there's a lot of directions we can go here. I guess my question would be, Eric, I'm going to send it over to you, is that so as we talk about being a younger leader, a now leader in this industry, let's talk about the challenges to that you face internally first. I mean, you know, you're the son of, you know, the owner kind of a situation, you're dealing with that dynamic. Talk a little bit about that. So what have been the biggest challenges internally from your seat?
One of the biggest was as you start to move up, specifically in a family business, of our size, we're big enough, but we're not so big. We've got tenured employees, some 30, 35 years, that have been very loyal to us. Our average tenure, I think, is 15 years for sales staff. So eventually what happens is as a young leader, you're leading the people that have been there, almost as long as I've been alive. So they've seen a lot more in the industry. They've been part of the business a lot longer. But then to earn their respect as you go through, it takes a lot of work. The joke that I like to say is it's twice the amount of work for half the amount of respect initially. But as you continue and you prove again and again that you can go ahead and you're making the correct decision, or you're making a decision at all, sometimes when it's a tough one, there is no right answer. You have to be able to stick by your guns and lead. So that I would say that is the hardest thing right now internally.
And Joe, let me ask you the same thing. That internal piece, is it a credibility thing when you make that step up? Is it a question of, especially when you talk about longtime employees, things like that? Is it sometimes a struggle to gain that respect, if you will, or talk a little bit about those internal challenges?
I guess I would just say you get what you give in terms of respect. I'm so fortunate. I have 6 designers on staff that have been with us over 30 years. There's nothing I'm going to tell them about how to do their job that's going to make them better. So they just do their own thing. I'm not over their shoulder critiquing them, and they sell a ton of furniture. They're very successful. And beyond that, I have managers that have 20 plus years of experience. So I know that's not a common scenario for a lot of new managers or new leaders. No, Eric's shaking his head like, oh, it's not common. That's what I was fortunate enough to walk into, and I guess all I had to do was not micromanage individuals that have been with us a long time. Just let them do their job, and really, and so then I didn't really have any trouble with gaining the respect of individuals because I kind of hands off and prefer to run the organization that way.
So let's, before we go on to the next piece, let's talk externally. And I'm going to go in reverse. Joe, I'm going to start with you this time. What about the challenges externally, as taking over, or just having a higher level? All the three of you having a higher level of exposure in your company externally. Have there been any specific challenges there that would be things that people listening could really learn from?
Externally, do you mean like recruiting new individuals or
anything? Relationships with vendors? You tell me. City Hall. I mean, whatever it might be. Are there? Well, yeah. Eric's in City Hall. We'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, I mean, I'm just wondering as a next generation leader coming in like that, are there some challenges externally also that you found that you had to surmount, or was it again just a question of just really listening and just kind of seeing where things took you?
Just trying to think about those various relationships. So our city and county government, I did have a little bit of experience, not prior to this, but in opening the new store. It's a vacant mall mostly, so we bought a former Macy's, so I had to go to the town, get approval for our new site plan. That was interesting. I think the only thing that I could share from that was just follow the process. And there were a dozen times I wanted to just put up a sign that was not approved yet because I'm thinking it's taken forever, or
right.
Really, at the end of the day, the county officials and the town board were appreciative that I went, and they told me this, that I went through all the steps and didn't do stuff like that. And I think it'll help if we need to get anything else approved. But
I think it's a great response because it's a question of, right, there's maybe a little bit of impatience, and it's understanding the system more, and then how to kind of work with it. And the reason that Eric chuckled is because when you talk about community involvement, he decided rather than working with the city council, he would just run for election. So he's a city council person up there. So Eric, talk a little bit about the challenges of being a young business leader as far as that external piece too, as your visibility has escalated.
So our community that we're based out of has roughly 30,000 people. It is classified as a city in Pennsylvania, but it's still a small town. Really can't go to any places without seeing somebody who we're fortunate enough to have purchased from us. And you want to make sure that they've had a good experience, because there are times when that does boil over, and I'll get approached in public because they want to just address an issue because they want somebody to know about it, or they had a great experience and they want somebody to know about it. That's always a really good feeling, because all too often you don't hear the good things, you hear the bad things, but you can't correct the bad things if you don't know about them. And then also too, thankfully, we're not located in the municipality where I am a city councilman, so there's no crossover with that. There's no conflict of interest, but to make sure that the community itself starts to grow so our business can continue to grow.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think it's an interesting story. You're one of the few people I know that's. I mean, we have our board president currently was the former mayor of the town where his store is. It's Stan Picken in Mesquite, Texas. That's kind of interesting. Nasidy, I'm going to ask the same question to you, but I want to preface it by letting people understand that your father and your uncle are two very different but very dynamic personalities. They really are. They're terrific. They're terrific, business people, and highly respected. So, have you had to face any interesting challenges externally as that up and coming young leader in that kind of an environment where they're so well known and respected?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would say externally, I'll focus more on vendor relationships and
Sure.
business partnerships, which is kind of where I think you're leading that conversation. But for me, growing up in the business, I truly did grow up in it. So I was brought along. My family, both Jeffy and Jason, are big on bringing the family along. If we're going to market, we're all going to market. We're going to business centers, we're meeting, having relationships with people, because that's what this industry is. We all know that. It's about relationships and people. So my dad was bringing us along to things when we were little, which that's what I would encourage too. If you have younger people, I was blessed that it's my family, so it was easy to tag along. But as you have younger individuals join your organization, I would encourage those that are on the call to bring them along, even if they're not in the industry. If they haven't been before and this is their first experience, that was huge for me. Just being able to watch and learn and be a part of the conversation, listen, learn from people that have been doing it for 50 years. That's really been a big thing, just being able to watch and learn.
Okay, cool. No, very cool. And you have permission to take the answers wherever you want to go. I'm just asking these questions. Some are good, some are not. So you always have the ability. All three of you do. No, I think it's very interesting, and it's a point that I just want to make to everybody is that we make a real point here at HFA to refer to people like the three of you as now leaders. This is not like even though it's called emerging star just means that the rest of the country is being introduced to you. Does not mean that you're some fledgling in your businesses. And I've been blessed to see all of you in your environment, in your work environments, et cetera. And you're now leaders. You're leaders. Period. There's no there's no age different. There's nothing. This is just saying you guys are quality leaders, and it's great that I've had a chance to see you all at work. And but you just said something super interesting. I'm going to throw this out as a toss-up. First person who wants to jump in first, do it. So from your perspectives, what do young leaders or up and coming leaders are trying to do? What do they need? What are the things that they need that any business out there can look for to try to cultivate more, leaders like you guys? So what do young leaders right now need?
I think it would be a mentor, somebody that's going to spend time to help develop that person. If you really want to bring somebody into your organization that's going to be a GM or take over multiple functions, it takes a lot of time, and somebody who knows how to do those things has to take the time, mentor that individual, and teach them, because you won't get to a place where that person can run the business themselves if nobody teaches them how to do it.
Okay, Eric, what do you think?
I think runway to allow them to possibly make some mistakes with the decisions that they make, but also that safety net with a mentor's relationship where you're not going to make anything so dire that you're going to be going out of business because of the mistake at hand. That being said, too, we're all of the millennial generation.
Well, three of you are.
Yeah, we'll forgive you, Mark.
Thank you. Sorry.
So I think working as a team is a lot more effective, to have the ability to bounce ideas off other people, to really get things done, not sitting in the meetings and going through and having somebody give an edict on high and then say, all right, this is how we're going to do it. Just really game that decision out amongst a group of peers.
Mhm.
Okay. Sydney, what do you think?
Yeah, I would agree. And I would say things like this are what young leaders need. They need a space to be able to collaborate, for me to meet Eric and Joe and have this conversation. And just the other organizations that are really starting to catch on to, okay, we got a new generation coming up. How do we attract that younger talent? How do we get people who have never thought about the furniture industry because everyone wants to go into investment banking? How do we draw those people into the furniture industry? So that's a challenge that we face. And one of the things that we've been doing is trying to go into colleges, trying to go into high schools and talk to kids or younger students, people that might just be getting into their career that don't have family in the business, that have never thought about furniture as a career path. And for me, that's exciting because I want to be able to create my leadership team based off of people that are going to start coming up in the industry. And for us, that's, again, it's been a challenge, but it's also been great. With Mark, what you've done here with HFA, there are other organizations. I'm a member of With It, which is a women's group in the organization that's super passionate about attracting young talent and really just starting the conversation of how do we get people excited about being in the industry? How do we start having the conversation about attracting that talent? So a space for us to all get together and collaborate is very important.
And I know that I in a self-deprecating way always make age comments and things like that. But the key element here is that the things that you just all talked about, mentors. Joe, this is you. I loved Eric, what you said about a runway, and then you all talked about being collaborative. It doesn't work if it comes from people like me, people at my age level. It doesn't. You guys are the reflection of those that everybody's trying to draw into the business. And so who knows better? Because I have a feeling that all those answers you just gave are the things that you have either experienced or would have wanted as well. I can't imagine that's not the case. So yeah, I just love that. I think that's very, 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 very instructive. Man, you just got my head spinning. There's a lot of ways we can go with this. I want to pause switch for a second, because since we talked about Eric's advocacy as a city council person in his region, we talk a little bit about the importance that you all find with corporate responsibility and those different elements, because I know, not as a millennial, but as the parent of a couple of them, that is critically important. Joe, is that something that in your business model, your values, and as a leader, is that something that's critically important? And if so, what does that look like?
Definitely. Not only is it important to us, it's important to our employees and recruiting talent. So we talk about it, make it part of our culture. Fortunate to have a good story to talk about it, because we repurposed 90,000 square feet of dead real estate. So one, if you're going to expand your business, you can invest in new construction, which is great, and that's exciting and one way to do it. And you might have to do that in a growing market, but just in terms of a footprint, we were able to double the size of our business using vacant retail that needed a lot of TLC, quite frankly. So, and then what we did on the inside, there were over 2,000 fluorescent light bulbs that had to get changed to LEDs. So that was a whole roller coaster on its own, of different fixtures and whatnot. You repurpose all the landscaping. We planted new trees around. It had really gone in a way it did not look nice around this vacant Macy's. So you bring in native species plants and get rid of invasive species out of the landscaping around your property. And yeah, just, of course, in your day-to-day business, you have to be thinking about how can it be good to the environment and not have a bad impact on the environment or in other areas. But especially when you're expanding, there's things you can do that have a major impact. So
I love that, because you're really, it's really the walk, right? I mean, that's really showing that it's not just something that's thrown on the wall of the break room, that it is something that even when you considered expanding the business, there's important elements there. And I think that's super instructive. Eric, what are your thoughts?
Ultimately, your culture is going to shine through. So if you have a leadership team that has a culture of corporate responsibility, that's going to speak volumes, especially if you're looking to promote younger leaders within your organization. They're going to be able to sniff out that being ungenuine in your response to community needs. One thing that we do, we have, obviously you'd mentioned our location being directly across from Little League Baseball. So we have an opportunity for about 2 weeks out of every year that we will donate our parking lot to a local nonprofit, and they will charge $10 to have people park. Then they're able to walk across the street conveniently to Little League Baseball, and then all that money gets donated to the nonprofit, every cent of it. So in the 20 years we've been at that location, we donated over $500,000 to local nonprofits because of it.
Just parking fees. Wow. Okay.
Yep.
Wonderful. Sydney?
Yeah, so the way we approach it, it's kind of like three-pronged right now. What Joe said is the employees are looking for that. The customers are also looking for that. They want to know what your story is. They want to know about the products that you're selling. So for us, a lot of our training is spent on the products and the brands that if we have a customer that comes in and they want to know about sustainability, have we taught our team what brands they can point them to that are doing sustainability and things with their actual products, with the wood and with all the materials that we use that they're using in their products that we're selling. So vendor knowledge, knowing where the vendor stands on their corporate responsibility is important. And then our carbon footprint, what we do about our waste. We have a lot of furniture in and out. We have a lot of cardboard, a lot of materials. So how are we recycling? And that story there. And then finally, for us, it's really big to support our local community, what both Joe and Eric said. So for us, we have a women's leadership circle here that we've developed on campus, and our mission is really to not only encourage and uplift our entire company, our employees here, but give them opportunities to be able to go out into the community and help in that way. And then also support our local communities, women-owned businesses, and specifically supporting women and children in the industry. And that's everything. We do something once a month. So whether that's donating furniture and completing a space to an organization or to an individual that needs help, or supporting local restaurants, local shops that are here. So lots of different approaches, but it's definitely something that's important and should already be a part of the conversation in all of our organizations.
Yeah, and I love what you said too, because the things the three of you are talking about are not just great for the community you serve, but also for the employees and making sure that that gives them some buy-in as well. We're just rocketing through the first half hour here. I want to remind people that are just joining us that we have Joe Bright, president of Duncan Bright Furniture up in Syracuse, New York. We have Sydney Harris from Furniture Land South in Jamestown, North Carolina, and Eric Biter's Furniture up in the Williamsport, Pennsylvania area. We've gotten a lot of questions from people that are on right now, and that's when we get a flow like this, we know we've scratched an itch here. So I'm going to throw this one out as an open question to anybody. It says, in your opinions, when attracting new young talent into the furniture space, what do you think is the want/excitement that needs to be created in order for younger people to enter our industry?
I'll start with that one. It's a realization that I came to myself a couple of years ago, because it's not anything really glamorous, the furniture industry, and we happen to sell appliances as well. That's how we started, by selling appliances. So when somebody comes into our store, you're fulfilling a need that they have, not necessarily a want all the time, but a need. And I'll use a furniture piece as an example. So somebody comes in, they need a lift chair because their mother's coming home from the hospital, and you're able to get that delivered to them within 24 hours to meet that need. You can really change somebody's day, week, month, year, just by being able to offer them that service. So trying to sell that part of it, so that way younger people understand that they are making an impact in people's daily lives that they might not really be aware of.
Okay, like that. Joe?
And certainly, I was going to talk about beyond the first day of hiring, recruiting a little bit, but certainly Sydney's going to be the expert on that. But at the risk of being her following up what I say, okay, I've transitioned from really focusing on recruiting to retention, because it's even more frustrating to recruit somebody and then they quit in like 3 months. So we're having an issue like that. we were for a while. So I think it's really valuable to think about somebody's runway was a term used earlier. So what is happening at 3 months? What's happening at 6 months? And is that employee are they making more than they were when you hired them? Can they be, is there, you can hire at one rate and then if somebody's showing potential, you're already baked in or you've already planned to give them a raise at 3 months, 6 months. So you're retaining those top performers. And then, thinking about, of course, beyond pay, their career track. And if somebody's a really high performer, what positions can they take on? What additional responsibilities can they do around the store? So that's not so much about recruiting, but I will tell you, if you get good at recruiting, but don't do the second part of planning out what's going to happen in the next 6 months, be like us and you'll be hiring a lot of people and not retaining.
I give you tons of credit on that, because if you take that question at face value, which is about getting them to enter the business, if we can't keep them, then it's just a cyclical exercise of frustration for those of you that are trying to do the hiring. Cindy, what would you say also as far as is the that, and again, the question is the want/excitement that needs to be created to really draw more young talent into our industry?
Yeah, I think a lot of this next generation that's coming up, they want to be challenged and they want to know that there's an opportunity for growth in their organization. So when we talk about salespeople, I mean, the growth opportunities for 100% commissioned associate it speaks for itself. But when you're talking about somebody that wants to come in as a visual merchandiser and maybe wants to eventually be a buyer or a senior designer, you have to be able to have that conversation up front and then give them measurables and a plan for development. It's not enough anymore to just say, yeah, we're going to bring you on, kind of like Joe was saying, at this rate, and we might give you some more responsibilities, but we'll wait until a couple years later to have that conversation about a next opportunity. If you go ahead and set the stage for that, that's exciting, because now I'm walking into a job and I'm saying, okay, this is what I'm doing today, but I really want to get to know that person and learn some of the responsibilities that they have so I can work towards something else, work towards a new position or a next position. And that's one of my challenges too, is how do we create kind of a growth plan for some of these positions? And with that, I think once you identify someone as a leader, and a leader is going to stick out. And if you're attracting that kind of talent that wants to grow, that's going to be an easy transition. But you have to be prepared to have that conversation, to give them a mentor. I think we've all three kind of touched on that. And give them some responsibility, give them an intern, tell somebody that they're going to start reporting to them. And that's really how you determine if someone's truly prepared and has that want to be a leader and to move up in your organization.
Yeah, and I love when we put all that together, is that you've all focused on little different aspects of this, but I think it's pretty clear that what you sell them up front, you got to make sure that you're carrying that through. And Joe, you made a good point about that, having that arc, that career track, if you will, plugging them into something like that. And then I love what Eric said too, stopping for a minute and not just looking at the sales floor as so transactional, but understanding how that impacts the customer. Well, there's a million stories that come out of that and ways they can relate to people. So I think that's all really valuable stuff. I appreciate that one. And now we kick into a very different question. I love this question. As now leaders, you may be experiencing, this is the questioner saying this, you may be experiencing your first major business downturn, having not necessarily been around for the recession in '08. It says, how are you planning to maintain growth and revenue given the current recessional headwinds? I think they want to get inside your brains here a little bit on that. Joe, it's been, you just opened a store, for Pete's sake, in the middle of a really uneven year. Can you talk a little bit about that and your perspective on how to maintain that growth and revenue even with this very unevenness we're looking at right now?
Sure. I would just say I bought the business January 2020, and 2 months later had to close the doors. So to me, that was
your timing is fantastic.
Business with bank debt, so I was thinking it might have been the worst investment in the history of.
I mean, so much for a honeymoon, right? That didn't happen. No, but I mean, but seriously though, I mean, talk a little bit about this, because you've really faced some amazing challenges, and some of it's self-created. I mean, deciding to expand is really something.
So our sales are up. I mean, we went from 1 store to 2 stores, so we better be up, but our business is growing. People are still buying furniture, and it's not with at the same level in the last 2 years, but they're buying it somewhere. And if you are that driven leader, then you're going to grow your organization or keep it flat, or, you know, even if you want to say we're just going to limit the bleeding, you got to take some market share from your competitors. People have not stopped buying furniture. There's less of them out there. There's less customers, but you can take customers from competitors. And if you create excitement in the market through promotions or new stores, or whatever you do to get customers in your door, you can still have a good sales record.
Yeah, you're I'm kind of cut of the same cloth. I just don't believe in timidity during these times. It doesn't mean to be reckless, but it's just, this is the time to really think about what you can do. Like you said, you're trying to grab market share at a time when people are, some people are flailing. Eric, what are your thoughts?
A couple of things that we're doing is obviously making sure that our inventory doesn't get too out of control. Obviously, 2 years ago, we had to buy anything that we could get our hands on because it was what was available. We had some purchase orders that were open for 6-9 months a year that finally arrived. And so what we decided to do this quarter was rearrange our sales floor. About 80% of it, there was a couple of things that couldn't be moved. So that way, when a customer comes in, it's a new look for them. We're able to get some older product out to push that, but making sure that our sales staff spends the additional time with those customers that do come through the door. As floor traffic is down, and you don't have as many people, spending that extra bit of time making sure that the customer understands the better goods that they might be getting, whatever they may be on your floor, is really important. And then making sure that they understand the value of your protection plans, your warranties, whether it's an adjustable base with a mattress and so on. So making sure that you get that additional add-on is very helpful.
I want to apologize, by the way. We have a local election here, and there's people that came to my front door, and my dogs are going crazy, and life goes on. What can I tell you? So I apologize for all the barking in the background.
Those politicians.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You know what I'm talking about. It's Sydney, I'm hearing from Joe and from Eric not shying away from adversity. This question was based on, headwinds, first time there's been this kind of a challenge perhaps in your lifetimes as leaders, but I don't hear anybody not embracing that and finding opportunity. Are you also on that bandwagon, and what does that look like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I echo what Joe and Eric both said. For us, we have noticed a slow up in foot traffic, but what's been interesting is our average ticket has actually increased a little bit. So takeout surcharges and all the things that are hitting our industry right now, we're still looking at that and saying, okay, what do these customers really want? The people that are shopping are buying. So I still see that trend. And to what Eric said, this is the time to invest in you're only going to get that one customer that comes in the door today. How are you making the most of that time? Are you prepared to stay with them the whole time, to talk about you mentioned, Eric, warranty, protection plan, all those things, truly getting to know that customer and building that relationship, knowing that if someone's coming in right now, they're probably going to make a buying decision at some point, whether that's today or in the near future. So how do we train how to have that conversation, how to be prepared? And then really we're focusing on back to basics. We've been through the last year and a half where people are just flooding in to buy furniture. And so the need for prospecting, for reaching out, for following up, all that's kind of slowed down. So what we're focusing on in training now is kind of the back to basics. How do we start picking up the phone again? We're going back to networking events. We're reaching out to old customers that haven't shopped with us in a while. So really training to, all right, it's always going to be time to think differently about your business and where you're getting your next customer for. So I'm always going to go back to training and how we prepare our team to deal with these uncertain times.
So, it sounds like you all are saying just don't let up on the basics. Make sure that you're doing the little things well, And you're all talking about just really good customer engagement, which I think is great. I love this question because it just kind of comes out of left field. But this one came in from one of the people on the webinar. It says, "So how long are they, three of you? So how long are they going to stay?" I know what they're at. I know what they're asking there is just, do you at this point? We're not going to hold you to this. We're not going to. I don't want to cause upheaval in the Harris, Biter, and Bright families. But the question is, I think there's a question within a question here. Do you see this as your, I mean, there's different jobs within your companies, but do you see this as your forever job? Joe, do you see yourself taking this through for the next number of years, or do you not approach it that way? I mean, I'm just curious because remember, you all come from traditions where it was like, somebody took over the business and you took over the business. You kept carrying it. Sydney, your dad and your uncle taking over from your grandparents, et cetera. So I think it's an interesting question. So Joe, I'm going to start with you. How would you answer that? How long are you going to stay? Do you even think that way, or is it tomorrow is all that matters?
I mean, I'm all in. We just expanded. I am the owner of our operating company. I'm the majority owner of our real estate company, but I'm a partner in that with my dad and my brother. So that's been a lot of fun reconnecting with them on the real estate ownership. And my brother's out in New York City and he works in commercial real estate, so he really helped us acquire that new property. Yeah, I'm not going anywhere. I don't think I could.
I didn't ask the question. I'm just repeating the question. No, but it's.
What would my bank say if I said I quit?
No, I think what the question here though is that do you see the industry right now as sustainable for a leader in your this millennial leadership? Is that happening? Because a lot of people are just wondering if the industry can sustain, if the way that business being done can sustain. I mean, I get it. There's a lot of, I think, kind of angst that's inside of that question.
Well, there was a friend of mine in the industry. She is about my age, early 30s. So the other day, she said, owning a retail furniture store is like one of the best things you can do for a career, and the best thing you can do for your community. You're hiring individuals. It's a fun job if you like engaging employees, customers. You're selling durable goods. Customers come into your store and they get something for their money. It's not an in-app purchase or a service or something like that. So and I believe her. I think it's one of the best things you can do for a career, and I do think people will stick with it if they realize those things.
Here's why I love that answer, by the way.
On a webinar, so.
Oh,
yeah.
So, I love that answer though, because that's almost you almost just wrote a promotional script for any retailer to take and really talk to anybody about why they love this business and the sustainability of it. So I love the way you answer. I think you answered that question the way this person was looking at that. Eric, you want to take a shot at that after I beat Joe up so badly?
So I've been with our company now continuously for 12 years. I would love it if my father and some of his cousins decided to retire so I could push things in a different direction, and not in a completely different way, but in a direction that I think.
No, this is getting juicy now. And by the way, your father looked me in the eye at the April market at High Point, and he said, Eric is my ticket out of this business, meaning you're his retirement ticket. So this might work out. It's maybe happening sooner than you think.
I'm calling the lawyers when we're done. Make sure that the paperwork started.
Good. I'm going to get in trouble for this, but that's okay. I'm sorry. Continue.
No, that's quite all right. But it was something that it was difficult at first, because when you go into a family business and you have those added pressures, as I talked about before. But as you start to figure out where you fall and where you stand, and just your style of leadership as a young person amongst all that, you start to learn. Just as Joe said, this is a great industry to be in because of the impact that you can have on your community. And I already mentioned the amount of people that we've had employed for some 30, 35 years. They've been able to provide for their families, send kids to college, go on vacations, and become productive members of the community on their own. Without us being in the community, none of that would happen. And we're a little bit isolated where we're at. We don't have a ton of other, box stores, things like that. On the appliance side, we basically compete with Lowe's. That's it. There's one in each of our markets. There's a few other very small, independently operated furniture stores. So that's even more so of the, as I mentioned before, the corporate good, that your culture has to resonate. You can't just talk the talk. You have to walk the walk as well.
Yeah, I just really like both your answers. I feel a lot of passion for the industry, and I think that's as a root to what you're doing, I think that's critical. Cindy, I'll give you a chance to chime in.
Yeah, I'll keep it short. And you just said it, passion. The day I stop being passionate about our people and about our business is the day I'll stop. So I don't see that being anytime soon at
There you
all.
go. You
Must
guys
have
are
ripped me out kicking and screaming.
well. No, you got me fired up, and I just I'm new to the industry, relatively speaking. About 5 years, and I've just fallen head over heels in love with this industry. I just think there's so many great things about it. And I think through the struggles, you've each helped to remind us about what those really shiny parts of it are. We've got some other great questions coming in. Let me throw this out and anybody jump in. By investing in young people in the organization, how do I know they're going to be loyal?
No, they might not be. So yeah, you can't bank on that. That's yeah, and employers don't get that guaranteed. I'm going to stay with you. So just don't. I don't know.
Okay, good enough.
Better answer than that, but
That's an honest answer. I think that's a good answer.
Yeah, my dad always says to our management and leadership team, stay close to your people. And I think if you're doing that, you find out very quickly if they're in or if they're out. And for me, if I'm staying close to my team, if I understand where they're at, yeah, on a professional level, but also we're all people. We all have a story. We all want to go different places. So when you talk about loyalty, is this person just looking for their next step in their career? And if they want my help, I'm happy to help them with that. But if they're not passionate, if they're not contributing to the organization, that's not going to do either of us any good. So you got to stay close and have those honest conversations with people to find that out.
Awesome. Eric, any comments or?
No, just to reiterate, communication's key with individuals as they come on board. But then, as we all talked about, making sure they have that runway, that game plan, and then giving them that added responsibility, as their time increases with your organization, because then you'll get their loyalty and you'll get them there for a career.
Here's another interesting question. It says, with traditional brick and mortar mindset, how are you all pivoting into e-com, or how are you managing the e-com aspect of your business?
So we have an e-commerce sales team, and they staff the phones. They take sales calls over the phone. They staff our website with live chat. They answer email inquiries. And they do help customers in the store. It happens all the time. Customer says, I chatted with so-and-so. They come in and they help that customer in the store. So there's so much to learn about it. I would say the first step is you need a dedicated team. We tried to have our floor salespeople do it, and rightfully so, they always prioritize the customer walking in the door. So if you're looking for where to start, you have to have a dedicated team, in my opinion.
Okay, Eric?
We've noticed as floor traffic has gone down, our website traffic has gone up. So we've done the same thing. We've earmarked a few individuals to be the dedicated team for the online traffic. We recently, at the beginning of the year, started a relationship with Podium for online chat functions and so on, so that way we can better manage those processes as well. And the same deal, somebody comes in the store, they said, hey, I talked to so-and-so, and we go get them and they come out. So that way they already have that relationship with them, and it makes it much, much easier.
Okay, Cindy?
Yeah, for us, we believe in the in-store experience, obviously with 1.3 million square feet of showroom space. But when COVID kind of happened, and not to go down that rabbit hole at all, but we realized that we really weren't prepared to fully do e-com yet, and we're behind on that. So with our transition to our new ERP system and platform, we just actually last week launched a new website that's going to open that door for us to make it a little bit easier. So I think the message there is, for us, we were already behind by not being on e-com. How can we compete with the Wayfarers of the world if we're not even there at the table? So we've got to get there, and we have a plan to do that. But for us, it's been, you've got to have the processes in place and the systems in place to be able to do it successfully. So it's kind of a work in progress for us, but we want to get it right. So we're taking the time and investment to really make sure that we're prepared and fully set up to do it.
And I appreciate that transparency, because I think that anybody that thinks that just because you might be a larger store that you've got everything nailed and it's perfect. Everybody is in a different state of managing their processes and creating different things. Joe, you struck a nerve here, because the follow-up question is, with that dedicated online team, are they compensated the same as the sales staff?
That's a good question.
I thought it would have been my answer, that you might not get loyalty from new associates. Are they compensated? Yes, they're commission-based pay. I mean, my team has an hourly plus a commission, and they make as much commission on a sale as a floor salesperson. So the hourly base is to kind of account for the fact that they will get, at least my team does, service calls come in, and you might have to answer 3 service calls before you get a good sales call. But instead of saying, let me transfer you, I don't handle that. I just say, just take care of it. And for that, they're getting an hourly rate.
Okay, appreciate that. The other thing that I would ask too now is that, since we're fortunate here that the 3 of you are part of succession, if you will. So let me just ask this: is there, from where you're sitting, how important is it going to be, do you think, to have a succession plan that follows you here? That's something that how do you think it's important for you guys, even at your age, to have to start that process of having something in place for whomever might come along within the family structure, within the greater family structure, to be a part of it? Because here's the reason I asked that question is because I think the fear is this, and I'm gonna equate it to what you guys have said with sales staff. It's wonderful, and I know Eric and I have talked about this offline. It's wonderful to have employees that have been there for 30 years. Replacing them is something else. So there's a sales succession issue out there for those of you that have people that have been there a long time. So that's a piece of it too. But also, is there just a need to have succession planning in all aspects of your business? And this is coming from your perspective as people that have been involved in that. Eric, I'm going to start with you on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. My 3 daughters are a little bit too young to come to work at the business, although one would probably want to take my job if I would let her. She's ruthless.
I don't know. You said what, at the age of 12? So I mean,
Exactly.
You're gonna blink, and they're gonna be old enough to get.
So, but ultimately, what you're doing with succession for all aspects of your business is you're making sure that it's there for the future. If for whatever reason you have another family member that wants to come in that hasn't been involved, and I don't know how long, or if you have any siblings, Sydney or Joe, but I have 5 younger siblings. None of them are involved in the business. And I personally, if they would want to join, I would certainly welcome them to join. But I would also expect them to get their hands dirty and go through the business and see what jobs they like and don't like, because there's got to be some expectations there. There's got to be some hard work that's put in, so that way they can fully appreciate what it is that we're doing and what we've done for decades.
Joe, do you have any thoughts about that? Because I think what I'm really driving at here with a plan is that you stepped in essentially late in the game to a certain degree. I don't mean that in a bad way, but you did. And can you see the benefits of having at least sort of a loose plan for succession in all aspects of the business going forward? Is that important, or is it not? Maybe it's a question that's a no.
I would say we're not great at that. I have managers that have been here a long time, and I haven't thought through exactly who's going to replace them. But probably the most important thing is ownership succession. So my dad would say, we got to start thinking about who's going to take it next as soon as you buy a business. So in that regard, you might want to buy a business and have an exit strategy already in place, whether it's family or just say, look, at the end of my tenure, I'm okay with selling it to an outside party. You know, that's the biggest one.
I mean, succession could really also be just the fact of having people in-house trained up to be able to step into any part of the business too. You know, that's a big piece of it. Sydney, any thoughts on that before we move on?
Yeah, I think I can approach it from both perspectives. So I do have family in the industry. I have a younger brother who's not in the industry; he's in the aviation industry. And then my little sister is about to go to college, so still on the younger end. But my cousins, I have my oldest cousin, so my dad's brother's oldest daughter, is working for our sister company, the Design Network. So she's in the industry, not with our company, but working in the industry and already doing fantastic things. So when you talk about succession plan, I totally echo what you said, Eric. You've got to, whether it's family or whether it's someone coming up, everyone's got to be willing to get their hands dirty and to start kind of at that humble beginning of, all right, I'm here to learn. And that goes back to having those eyes ready for looking for the next leader. You should always be preparing your successor, no matter what role you're in, no matter what position you're looking to. And we got to a point this year we had an opening on our management team. We looked around and said, okay, we don't have anybody trained up ready to take that position. We got to look in the mirror and say that's a problem. So I'm tasked now with creating a kind of management training process, and how can we take people that are already resembling those skills that we want in a leader and give them the tools to develop so that when we're ready for that, it's a very easy transition. So very important to have a plan. And if nothing else, again, we all talked about mentorship and being close to people, knowing who's going to be loyal, knowing who wants an opportunity to be a leader in the organization or a manager, and having a plan for that. It's really important.
Yeah, I love that. You know, I think I just want to, as we wrap up here today, and first of all, this has been just, I mean, so many wonderful takeaways from three very gifted people. You know, I just really realized, and this sounds self-serving, but so what? I just really realized that, you know, you were all nominated. You put forth our large packet of telling about who you are and what you do. And then a group of industry professionals, you know, said these three people deserve to be considered this emerging star. It's so clear that you've all earned it. It's so clear that the only, as I said earlier, the only emerging piece of this is that people that don't know you now understand that, but you are all integral parts of your businesses. You are leaders now. And I'm just thrilled. It just makes me feel good about the fact of, you know, this isn't just a popularity contest and just deciding to bestow things on certain people. Man, the three of you earned this big time, and it's so fun to see you just continue to develop and lead. And you know, I would work for any of the three of you in a minute. Not that you would ever offer, but I'm just saying if that. But let me just do this really quickly before I wrap us up here. I just want to definitely thank Joe Bright from Duncan Bright, Sydney Harris from Furniture Land South, and Eric Biter from Biter's Furniture. I appreciate the three of you joining us. And we'll now have to see who's the emerging star next year, because boy, they've got some huge shoes to fill. I do want to mention to everybody, by the way, that we're coming up on it. A bunch of our team leaves tomorrow. Yes, the Las Vegas market. We will be there starting on Saturday afternoon. Our resource center is Building B, 1050, 10th floor. Come on up and see us. We've got a ton of incredible solution partners there who can help you with your business. And just invite you to come by and say hi. And if you're there in lovely Las Vegas in July, you know, you might as well come into a cool air-conditioned environment, and we're there for you. But Joe, Eric, Sydney, thank you very much. I wish you and everybody else watching this not only great sales, but continued terrific health. And we will see you here next time. I'm Mark Schumacher. On behalf of all of us at HFA, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.